While many folks have a vague idea of ancient Persia, shaped mostly by blockbuster films and fleeting cultural references, the reality is that this civilization often slips under the radar compared to the spotlight on Rome, Greece, or Egypt. Those Western-heavy histories dominate classrooms and media, but the Eastern world held its own marvels. At its zenith, the Achaemenid Empire, as it's formally known, spanned an astonishing expanse, controlling territories from the Mediterranean shores to the Indus Valley. Scholars estimate that around 475 BCE, it encompassed about 44% of the global population, roughly 50 million people, in a world of perhaps 112 million, making it the most populous empire relative to its time in recorded history. To put that in perspective, no other ancient realm came close in scale or influence. So, let's journey through several hundred years of Persian chronicles, uncovering layers beyond the standard narratives and drawing on archaeological insights and modern analyses for a fuller view. Our understanding of the Persians largely stems from a trio of ancient Greek chroniclers, Herodotus, Xenophon, and Ctesias. These authors provided vivid accounts, but they came with significant caveats. As adversaries of Persia during prolonged conflicts, the Greeks viewed their eastern neighbors through a lens of rivalry and cultural misunderstanding, often portraying them as decadent or barbaric to bolster their own heroic tales. Much of this literature exaggerates Persian customs or invents details for dramatic effect. Even basic elements like royal names were Hellenized, distorting their original pronunciations due to limitations in the Greek script, which lacked equivalents for certain Iranian sounds. For instance, the leader we call Cyrus was actually known as Kurush in his native tongue, Darius as Dariovaush, and Xerxes as Kishtaia. Moreover, the Persian rulers weren't monarchs in the Greek mold. They styled themselves as Shahanshah, or King of Kings, emphasizing their overlordship over diverse realms rather than absolute tyranny. Fortunately, we aren't limited to these skewed perspectives. Indigenous sources offer a more balanced glimpse. One pivotal artifact is the Behistun inscription, a multilingual rock carving commissioned by Darius I around 520 BCE, akin to the Rosetta Stone in its historical value. Etched high on a cliff in modern-day Iran, it recounts Darius's rise and victories in Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian cuneiform, affirming Zoroastrian influences and royal legitimacy. Equally revealing are the Persepolis fortification tablets over 30,000 clay records, unearthed from the royal complex, dating to 509–94–93 BC. Written primarily in Elamite cuneiform, these documents detail everyday administration, from worker rations and travel allowances to tax collections, painting a picture of a sophisticated bureaucracy far removed from Greek stereotypes of opulent excess. Recent excavations, including a 2024 discovery of a monumental 12-meter gate at Persepolis, further illuminate architectural grandeur, while analyses of plant remains from nearby lakes suggest innovative environmental management, blending local flora with imports for lush estates. The Persians, or Parsa, as they identified themselves, belonged to the Indo-Iranian ethnic group, sharing linguistic and cultural ties with the Medes. Their ancestors originated from the steppes of Central Asia, around present-day Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and southern Russia, part of the broader Indo-European migrations that reshaped Eurasia at the close of the Bronze Age. Roughly 1200 BCE, these Proto-Indo-Iranians, linked to the Sintashta and Andronovo archaeological cultures, were chariot-using pastoralists who gradually moved southward, drawn by fertile plains and trade routes in Mesopotamia. They referred to their homeland as Aryan Imvaja, or Land of the Aryans, a term that evolved into Iran today. In their Old Persian language, Parsa connoted strength and martial prowess, reflecting a society of resilient warriors. Initially, these migrants led a nomadic existence, but not the endless wandering of desert tribes. Instead, they practiced transhumance, or seasonal vertical migration, herding livestock up mountain pastures in summer for cooler grazing and descending to warmer lowlands in winter where vegetation thrived. This adaptive lifestyle persists in parts of the Caucasus and Zagros Mountains, even now. As documented in ethnographic studies, their diet was frugal, focusing on dairy, grains, and meat, with minimal indulgence in fermented beverages, contrasting sharply with the wine-loving Mesopotamians. Renowned for equestrian skills honed on vast grasslands, Persians donned practical attire, like fitted trousers for riding innovations that shocked skirt-wearing neighbors and tall, pointed felt caps called tiaras, symbols of status. Physically, they stood out as taller and fairer than many indigenous groups in the Fertile Crescent, traits attributed to their steppe heritage, as evidenced by skeletal remains from sites like Tepe Siak. By the 7th century BCE, the Persians had settled in southwestern Iran, seizing the Elamite stronghold of Anshan around 640 BCE. This conquest marked a turning point, integrating Elamite urban traditions with Persian vigor. From then on, Persian sovereigns prefixed their titles with King of Anshan, honoring this foundational victory and blending legacies. In the mid-6th century BCE, a dynamic figure ascended, Kurush II, later dubbed the Great. Born around 590 to 580 BCE to Cambyses I of Anshan and a Median princess. He inherited a vassal state under Median overlordship. Yet in 553 BCE, he sparked a revolt against his grandfather, Astyages of Media, capitalizing on internal dissent. Key Median nobles, frustrated with Astyages' harsh policies, switched allegiances, tipping the scales in a climactic battle where the Median forces disintegrated. On that site, Kurush established Pasargadae as his capital, a sprawling complex blending gardens and palaces that symbolized his new order. Kurush's ambitions soared beyond Media. In swift campaigns from 550 to 539 BCE, he subdued Parthia, Armenia, Cappadocia, and the ancient kingdom of Elam. Lydia fell after a siege of Sardis in 546 BCE, while Ionian Greek cities along the Aegean coast submitted. Some through diplomacy, regions like Hyrcania and Cilicia pledged fealty without bloodshed, lured by promises of stability. His crowning achievement came against the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Historical lore, echoed in the Cyrus cylinder, a baked clay artifact proclaiming him as Marduk's chosen, depicts a divine mandate to oust the unpopular Nabonidus. In truth, Babylonian elites, weary of Nabonidus' neglect of temples and favoritism toward moon worship, opened the gates in 539 BCE, welcoming the invaders peacefully. What set Kurush apart was his statesmanship. Rather than plunder, he extended clemency to compliant foes, retaining local rulers in advisory roles and respecting customs. This tolerance policy minimized uprisings. For example, he repatriated exiled groups, including 40,000 Jews from Babylonian captivity. Funding Jerusalem's temple rebuild a deed, earning him biblical praise as God's anointed. Isaiah 45. Persians comprised just 5% of the empire's populace, so brute domination was impractical. Instead, Kurush fostered a mosaic of semi-autonomous regions, united by loyalty oaths and tribute. His northern frontier push against Scythian nomads ended tragically in 530 BCE, slain in combat with the Massagetæ under Queen Tomyris, who allegedly defiled his corpse in revenge for her son's death. Succession fell to his son, Cambyses II, who faced immediate revolts across the freshly won domains. After quelling them by 525 BCE, he eyed Egypt, capturing Memphis and executing Pharaoh Psamtik III, incorporating Libya as a satellite. Ambitious schemes against Carthage faltered when Phoenician sailors, vital for the navy, balked at attacking Kin. A Kush expedition collapsed from logistical woes in the Nubian deserts, en route to crush a Babylonian insurgency in 522 BCE. Cambyses perished, mysteriously, possibly from infection or poison, leaving a power vacuum. Enter Darius, a distant relative who claimed the throne amid chaos. He accused Cambyses' brother Berdia of being an impostor, a magus named Gomata slain in a coup. To solidify his rule, Darius traced descent to Achaemenid Empire great-grandfather, naming the dynasty Achaemenid. Early years saw him stamping out 9 rebellions, detailed in the Behistun relief. Militarily, a Scythian foray north of the Black Sea floundered, but he annexed Thrace and forged ties with Macedon against Greece. Initial clashes set the stage for larger wars, though Darius delegated command. His true genius lay in governance. He partitioned the empire into 28 satrapies, each led by a satrap handling civil matters like infrastructure, justice, and taxes. Post-revolt's military oversight shifted to royal generals to curb autonomy. Economic reforms included the gold daric worth, Benta silver siglo. Standardizing trade, a soldier earned 1 daric monthly, while basics like sheep cost 3 sikloi, an expansive road grid, including the 2,500-kilometer royal road from Sardis to Susa, facilitated troop movements and commerce, with relay stations enabling messages to traverse Endesa, precursor to Pony Express systems. Darius completed a canal linking the Red Sea to the Nile Delta, boosting sea trade as inscribed on stelae. Monumental builds flourished. Persepolis, his ceremonial hub near Pasargadae, featured the Apadana Hall, with 72 columns, crafted by artisans from across realms. Other capitals included Ecbatana for summers, Susa as administrative core, and Babylon for prestige. Verdant enclosures, called paradisa, inspired the concept of paradise, with engineered irrigation sustaining exotic plants. The Persian military hinged on the Anusia, or Immortals, a 10,000-man elite infantry corps armored in scale mail, wielding spears, achinakes, swords, and composite bows. Their immortal moniker, Per Herodotus, arose from instant replacements maintaining numbers, though it might derive from companions in Persian. Selection was fiercely competitive, drawn from nobility. Supporting them were archer-slinger light infantry, spear-armed heavy cavalry, and javelin-throwing light horsemen. Provincial levies, Egyptian charioteers, Syrian skirmishers, even Jewish and Greek auxiliaries aided diversity, supplemented by mercenaries like Scythian archers. Tactics emphasized mobility and ranged fire. though vulnerabilities emerged against disciplined phalanxes. Religiously, Persians weren't mere fire venerators. They followed Mazdaism, and precursor to Zoroastrianism, founded by Zarathustra around 1500 to 1000 BCE. This henotheistic faith elevated Ahura Mazda as supreme creator, acknowledging lesser deities like Mithra, truth and light, Anahita, fertility and waters, and the adversarial Angra-Mainyu. Royal inscriptions invoke Ahura Mazda as patron, but the empire tolerated all beliefs Marduk in Babylon, Yahweh among Jews, Amen in Egypt, fostering harmony. A unique custom, major deliberations occurred intoxicated. Believing wine unveiled truths, then revisited sober for ratification. Tensions with Greece ignited in 499 BCE with the Ionian Revolt. Greek coastal cities aided by Athens and Eretria culminating in Sardisa's sack and a temple's torching. Suppressed by 493 BCE after 7 years, it prompted Persian demands for earth and water submission, rejections from Athens' envoys executed, and Sparta tossed into a well-fueled retaliation. In 490 BCE, a force under Datis and Artapernes landed at Marathon's Bay. Outnumbering Greeks 2-1, positioned downhill, Persians hesitated. Athenian General Miltiades, awaiting Spartan aid, struck as foes re-embarked for undefended Athens. Chaos ensued, with 6,400 Persian dead versus 192 Greeks. Darius's vengeance plans halted by an Egyptian uprising. He died in 486 BCE. His son Chayarsha amassed 150,000 to 200,000 troops, not the mythic million, for a 480 BCE invasion. At Thermopylae's narrow pass, not merely 300 Spartans but 7,000 allies held for 2 days before a betrayal allowed settlement. Leonidas's rearguard of 1,000 perished heroically. Persians razed evacuated Athens, but at Salamis, Greek triremes sturdier than Persian vessels lured the fleet into straits, sinking 200 ships. Supply lines severed. Chayarsha retreated, leaving Mardonius defeated at Plataea in 479 BCE. Mikhail's naval triumph followed, leading to the 449 BCE Peace of Callias, ceding Aegean Isles and Anatolian coasts. Post-war, Persia pivoted to diplomacy, funneling gold to sway Greek politicians like Demosthenes, fueling internal strife. Doom arrived from Macedonia. Philip II unified Greece by 338 BCE, plotting Persian invasion, but assassinated in 336 BC. Emote is murky. From personal grudges to alleged Persian intrigue or son Alexander's involvement. At 20, Alexander III inherited a primed army, launching in 334 BCE over 11 years. He dismantled the empire undefeated, leveraging the Saracen-armed phalanx and daring tactics at Granicus Issus. 333 BCE, rooting Darius, 3 Gaugamela, 331 BCE, empire's death knell. By 330 BCE, Persepolis burned symbolically. The Achaemenid realm ended by 329 BCE, ushering Hellenism, yet Persia's imprint endures. Hellenistic Seleucids, then Parthians. 247 BCE those Quattros and Sasanians 224-651 CE perpetuated administrative models like satrapies and roads. Innovations Canids for irrigation, Yakshals for refrigeration. The first human rights charter via Cyrus, Cylinder, influenced Rome and beyond. Persian Farsi thrives, Zoroastrian pockets persist in Iran and India, and concepts like paradise gardens grace global landscapes. Recent finds, like 2024's hoard of 2,600-year-old derricks in Turkey buried by mercenaries underscore ongoing revelations, affirming Persia's role in shaping civilization's tapestry.